Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This verse is prose. What is prose in Hindi? We didn't find it. Okay, never mind. So we're not going to be able to chant it, this verse. I certainly won't be able to chant it. Instead of just reading it, which no one will understand and no one will be able to chant after, we'll read the word by words, and then, in fact, what I'll do is, I'll do things a little opposite. We'll read the translation. This is a very important verse and quite a wonderful verse. We'll read the translation, and then after we read the translation and Srila Prabhupada's purport, perhaps we will ask you what you remember from this, and also perhaps we'll read some of the word by words also, because they are very sweet, the Anvaya. So please listen. There are many things in this verse, very powerful verse, and very important. First of all, who's speaking? Raise your hand if you know who is speaking this verse. Everyone is Lajja. Who is speaking? Thank you, who? Indra. Thank you. Why? Yes. He and the other devatas, they are praying to the Lord. What are they praying for? Shuddha Bhakti. Protection from Vritrasura. Now, I will ask a very, very difficult question now. You ready? Who was here in yesterday's class? This is the easiest part of it. Who was here in yesterday's class? You were the only person. No one will admit it. Okay. And who gave class yesterday? Is he here? No? Okay. Here's my question. Who remembers something from yesterday's class? Oh, okay. Raise your hand if you're ready to say something from yesterday's class. You were first so enthusiastic. Yes. Yes. Yes, thank you.
So from the translation, I remember that by deliberation, a person can see the same super soul present in each and every particle of the entire material world. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada starts by revealing that super soul is actually Govinda, quoting from Brahma Samhita. Then he goes on to the Bhagavad Gita, quoting Kshetragya Chapi Mam Vidhi, that this Kshetragya Chapi Mam Vidhi means the super soul and the soul are together. And then
okay. Very nice. Wonderful, actually. But just wait, let's see if anyone else. Who else remembers something from yesterday's class? No one else is going to. You come sit up here next to me. You can. That was wonderful. You remembered so much. If we can somehow, and this is one of the points that comes out in this verse, if we can somehow or another fill our consciousness with Krishna, if we could remember Krishna somehow or another, this is the perfection of our life. If we can somehow become absorbed in thoughts about Krishna. And there is one phrase, one part of this verse, the English translation, that really struck me, but we will talk about it in a few moments. Who else remembers something about yesterday's class? Thank you so much. What is your good name? Oh, no wonder. That explains. Did you know Vibhu Chaitanya in Vrindavan? And your Guru Maharaj was very fond of him also. So he must be very fond of you to give that name. You know, when Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu, when he was too old to do deity seva in Vrindavan, they had to replace him because he was cooking for all the deities, Krishna Balaram, Radha Sunda, and C.C. Gonatai. And when he was too old to do that service, they replaced him with 6 people. They had to replace him. So I think your Guru Maharaj has a lot of expectation of service from you. Okay, who else remembers? Yes.
Yesterday, Prabhu started the class mentioning that how we need to do introspection time to time, so that we can check like how much we are growing in Krishna consciousness, what are the real equations of our heart. So I like that point. I remembered that.
Thank you. Very important point to remember, to apply. Now let's listen to this verse. As I said, I won't read the Sanskrit right now, or the word by words, but listen to the translation. And as soon as I'm finished with the translation, I will ask you the question, what do you remember? And I'll ask you to raise your hand. So you have to listen closely, okay? Therefore, Indra and the Devatas are speaking. Therefore, O killer of the Madhu demon, incessant. What does incessant mean? Continuous, non-stopping, ananya. Incessant transcendental bliss flows in the minds of those who have even one tasted but a drop of the nectar from the ocean of your glories. Such exalted devotees forget the tiny reflection of so-called material happiness produced from the material senses of sight and sound. Free from all desires, such devotees are the real friends of all living entities. Offering their minds unto you and enjoying transcendental bliss, they are expert at achieving the real goal of life. O Lord, you are the sole and dear friend of such devotees who never need to return to this material world. How could they give up engagement in your devotional service? Okay, without looking either at the board or at your mobile phone or computer, you have to, what do you remember? Raise your hand. If anything struck you from that verse. We'll see if this, yes, Prabhu. Thank you. Wonderful point. Another point. Thank you. Yes, Maharaj.
This nectar, by that they have no taste for tiny material existence or material desire.
What verse in the Bhagavad Gita says something very similar? Param dristvana vartate. Now, I have to stop and just talk about this point for one moment. This is urgent. It is urgent that we taste some sweetness, some actual sweetness in Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, the mind will go again and again and again and again and again to the objects of the senses. And if we have a controlled mind, if we've learned the art of controlling our mind, we can keep pulling it back and keep pulling it back and keep pulling it back. But it's very tiring work. And it must be done. It must be done. But the real secret of controlling the mind is given here. Is have the mind somehow or another taste the sweetness of Krishna's glories. Thank you. This point comes up again and again and again and again in the Srimad Bhagavatam, that we must hear about Krishna. We must hear about Krishna. In this, Ujjain, of course, is so famous amongst the Krishna Bhaktas for being the ashram of Sandipani Muni, where Krishna and Balaram came, and of course the wonderful pastime with Sudama. But in the beginning of that chapter, does anyone know the number of the chapter in the 10th canto that pastime begins? Close, but not quite. Das Kam, 80. 80 and 81. In the beginning of that chapter, Maharaj Prickett, who has heard so much already, he's been hearing and hearing, practically speaking for 6 days. He just says, please speak more, please speak more, tell me more pastimes about Krishna. And in the first chapter of the 10th canto, again, he asks, you've spoken about Krishna's pastimes in brief at the end of the 9th canto, but now I want to hear everything in detail. Tell me about Krishna in Vrindavan. Tell me about Krishna in Mathura. Tell me about Krishna in Dwarka. Tell me everything that I ask about Krishna, and tell me everything that I don't ask about Krishna. I want to hear about Krishna. And because of tasting this nectar, and this is one of the expressions in this verse, those who have even once tasted but a drop of this nectar, Maha Amrita Rasa Samudra Vipusha. Vipusha means one drop. Amrita, nectar. And where does this word Amrita come from? What is Mritu? Death. So Amrita means this is what's going to cure you from death. And if you just taste a drop of this samudra, from this samudra of what? Mahima, Krishna, Tava Mahima, of your glories. If you can just taste one drop, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, this drop is enough to drown the entire world. If we can somehow do that, then our life is successful. And the great struggle, the great fight of trying to pull the mind back from engaging in the material sense objects, that fight is over. So Maharaj Prickett, in the beginning of the 10th canto, finally, he's going to hear directly about Krishna, which was his desire spoken in the very first canto. Please talk about Vishnu, talk about Lord Narayan. And actually, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that until this point, until actually the pastimes of Lord Ramachandra were spoken, even though so many pastimes about the descendants of the Manus have been spoken, Chakshusha Manu, etc., still And so many avatars have been explained, and so many great devotees have been spoken of, including Vitrashura. Until this point, sweetness has not been obtained. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says it. So even in examining the life of Vitrashura, who's such an exalted devotee, but because he was in the body of an asura who was acting as if pratikul to Krishna's desire, fighting with the devatas, the perfect devotee has not yet been described who we can follow, who is pure. So gradually, that pure devotee is described in the next canto, who we can follow. And even Prahlad Maharaj says that you have sent me to this world to set the example of a pure devotee, an example that we should follow. Gotrupte varanam tata, complete dependence on Krishna. So this Amrita, which will destroy our death, it is available, this rasayan, this medicine that will destroy our death, that will give us life, real life, comes from hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. So here, I'll read the verse one more time, and then I'm going to read Srila Prabhupada, and then we'll go over some of the word by words. And I recommend that we do this same verse tomorrow, because I will just touch on it a little bit, and some kind devotee can speak on this verse further tomorrow. One could speak on this verse for weeks and weeks and weeks, practically speaking. And Srila Jiva Goswami in Priti Sandarbha, he cites this verse in relationship to a verse in the 7th canto that describes a similar point. And the point in the 15th chapter of the 7th canto, it describes how if one can free one's consciousness from lust, if one can free one's consciousness from material desires and lust, then one has the capacity to taste Brahma Sukhya, Tanantam. But he speaks about it, Maharaj Yudhisthira is hearing from Narada Muni at that time, he speaks about it while describing something quite impersonal, seemingly impersonal, about Brahman. And on that transcendental level, one can taste happiness that doesn't end. So Srila Jiva Goswami cites that verse, and then he cites this verse to give an example of priti, love for Krishna, the highest attainment, and how powerful it is. And he's going to cite it from the point of view, or this verse is from the point of view of, look at the effect of it. How do you know a medicine is powerful? Oshud. How do you know Bahut Shakti? How do you know it's so powerful? By the effect. If someone takes this medicine, he is cured. So, to give an example, even though it's speaking about Lord Paramatma, we're of course leading to Krishna's direct pastimes. And even though they're praying to become free from the fear of Vitrashura, what does Vitra mean? Does anyone? One who covers everything. So what fear actually covers everyone in this world? It's the fear of death, ultimately. So this medicine, Bhava Oshad, will cure one from death. Nivrittatasya upagiyamanam bhavosada sutamana bharamat. You will cure the great disease that covers everything, and that is death. And listen to the effect. This verse is going to describe the effect of this Krishna Katha on the devotees, on those who hear it. Please listen, I'll read it again. Therefore, O killer of the Madhu demon, incessant, non-stopping, unending, transcendental bliss flows in the minds of those who even once have tasted but a drop of the nectar of the ocean of your glories. Such exalted devotees forget the tiny reflection of so-called material happiness produced from the material senses of sight and sound. Free from all desires, or describing the devotees who have tasted this, they forget all material pleasures. And then what do? Free from all desires, the devotees are the real friends of all living entities. Then they become the real friends of all living entities. When one is free from material desires and tastes this sweetness, then one has the capacity to actually become the real friend of all living entities, to help everyone, because one is no longer envious of anyone. It is our material desires, Maharaj Yudhisthira is told by Narada Muni, that makes us envious of others. Continuing, how do they become the friends of all other living entities? What is their mind like? Offering their minds unto you and enjoying transcendental bliss. They are expert in achieving the real goal of life. What is the real goal of life? Yes, what did you say, Prabhu? Krishna Prema. Yes, devotional service. Prema, Parama Arto, Man. So they're the friends of everyone. They're giving others Krishna consciousness, and they have no envy, and they have no motive. Anyabhilasita sunyam, Gyanakama anavrita, Anakulena, Krishnana Shilanam. This is bhakti. And in that state, they are expert in achieving the real goal of life. O Lord, you are the sole and dear friend of such devotees. Suridam Sarvabhutanam. When Prabhupada says you are the soul of such dear devotees, there is soul and dear friend, he says. So the dear friend is always thinking about his friend. But what does it mean when Prabhupada says the soul of such devotees? Yes, but where does the life come from? The soul. So such devotees, their life is Krishna. It is completely swabhavika, natural. That their life, Krishna is everything to them. We can't artificially do this. But Krishna becomes everything for such devotees. And how does Krishna reciprocate with such devotees who make him everything? Then he is their dear, dear, dear friend. And a friend will do anything for his friend. Bhakta Vatsalya Atma Prajanta Vedanyata. So he is the soul and dear friend of such devotees who never need to return to this material world. What word is, I find one word in English interesting in this. They never need to return to this material world. What word is interesting or strong in this? Okay, I thought never, but what's the word after never? Need. So what? They don't need to come to the material world, but why do I need to come to the material world? Because I need to come because I have desires. I want something of this material world, so I need to come here. But these devotees, who Krishna is everything for them, and Krishna reciprocates with them, and they are everything to him, and he is everything to them. They don't have any need to come to this material world. They have no need because they don't want anything from here. It's like eating ashes for them. Have any of you ever eaten ashes? Would you prefer ashes or gulab jamun? Yes, yes, me also. Although don't tell the doctor. This world, it is all promises. It is all advertising. But the taste is always like ashes. It cannot fulfill its promise. Do you believe that? I mean, I'm not asking you to raise your hand because everyone will raise the hand, of course. But you ask yourself, do I keep something a little bit in secret inside that only if I could have this, then I would be happy? Oh, and I really want this. This is something, as you were pointing out, the need for introspection, to think of what we actually want. Because Krishna will fulfill desires. When I first started chanting, the kind devotee who introduced me to chanting seriously, his name was Rupanuga Prabhu. And he introduced me to Srila Prabhupada. And he used to say that one day, after you've been chanting, one day Krishna will come to you and say, I am like this. And whenever he would say this, he would always say, I am like this. I don't know why exactly, but he would say, I am like this. Krishna will say to you, I am like this, and I am pleased with you. What do you want? I will give you whatever you want. And then he would say, Rupanuga Prabhu would say, when Krishna says that to you, make sure you don't ask him for anything material. He would say, just like Prahlad Maharaj says in his prayers, no, my Lord, I am not a banaya. I have not served you. I have not served you because I want anything from you. I have not reserved to get something for you. I have served because this is my natural position to serve you. It's completely natural that I serve you, and that is why I serve you. You are my master. So please don't ask me. And actually Prahlad said, please don't tempt me and ask me if I want something material. I'm already a conditioned soul. I'm such a fallen soul. Please just allow me to serve you. And then he said, if you want to give me something, please free my heart from all material desires, from all lusty desires. Please. And then I'll be able to be on this platform that's being spoken of here. So they never need to return to this material world. How could they give up engagement in your devotional service? How could you give up something great for something little. Here is Srila Prabhupada's purport. Very short purport, but after I read it, I will ask you. You ready? Although non-devotees, because of their meager knowledge and speculative habits, cannot understand the real nature of the Lord, a devotee who has once tasted the nectar from the Lord's lotus feet can realize what transcendental pleasure there is in the Lord's devotional service. A devotee knows that simply by rendering service to the Lord, he serves everyone. Therefore, devotees are real friends to all living entities. Only a pure devotee can preach the glories of the Lord for the benefit of all conditioned souls. Okay, what do you remember? Krishna's glories for the benefit of all conditioned souls. Now I'm going to read this 2 more times, and that last sentence, and I'm going to ask you another question. Why is the question? Prabhupada makes a statement and we should think about it. Why? You ready? You're the students. Only a pure devotee can preach the glories of the Lord for the benefit of all conditioned souls. Only a pure devotee can preach the glories of the Lord for the benefit of all conditioned souls. Why? Yes? I couldn't hear one word in there. Thank you. You like to serve? Yes, yes. I remember him from last time. He likes to dance also.
Non-devotees cannot understand Lord, and devotees can understand Lord. So if someone understands Lord, he can or she can preach.
Yes, true. Would you like to say?
Pure devotee can preach for the benefit of all conditioned souls, because someone other will do it for himself to purify his or her.
Yeah. One more point. Yes, very good, both of you. Yes. I want some more out of this though.
It has been said only a pure devotee can preach for the benefit of all conditioned souls, because all other kinds of devotees may be after liberation or material aggrandizement. So they will be preaching to their own end.
Some little percentage I want for me, maybe. And then, but what is the result of that?
What is the result of?
The result of that, if I want to take something from my dealing with you, my preaching, what is the result of that?
I am not working for your benefit.
Yes. Yes, definitely. Maybe I am working for your benefit, but I still want my part. But what I would like to say is, then Krishna will not empower that person. I've heard Srila Prabhupada speak on this point in a lecture in 1976 in Sridham Mayapur. I was there, but I heard the lecture recording of it many, many, many times also. He said, if you want, and he said it with very, very much feeling. He said, if you want the bricks and the wood, then Krishna will give you the bricks and the wood. But for a devotee who wants to serve, he will give him that service. So therein was Prabhupada's secret, a very open secret. He wanted to serve, and he didn't want anything else other than to serve. And what did Krishna give him? He gave him unlimited service. And Prabhupada kept expanding that service. He even told myself and Jagatarini Mataji, it is my desire that everyone in the universe becomes Krishna conscious. Not even in the city or the country or the world, in the universe, he said. You please help me with this. So what a desire. What a huge, huge, unlimited desire. So he created a movement that also has unlimited desires to expand until everyone in the universe becomes a devotee, becomes Krishna conscious. So please help Srila Prabhupada fulfill his big desire by helping your Guru Maharaj, who also has big desires, very kind-hearted and soft-hearted desires to help others. And please speak about who will give class tomorrow. Is it? Will you give class tomorrow? Yes. Can you please speak about this verse more? Because I didn't even do what I said I was going to do, go over the word by words. But I will. I'll start. But I did want to leave a few moments for questions. But ataha, therefore, tavayor maha amrita rasa samudra vipusha, that someone who has tasted even one drop from the ocean of your Mahima, one drop of Amrita, one drop, a little bit, and there's an ocean. Then Sakrid, even once, Avalidhaya, tasted, Swamanasi, in his mind, having tasted this even once, Nishayamana Damana, flowing, Anavarata, continuously, Sukhena, by transcendental bliss. This is so wonderful, and the Sanskrit is so wonderful, and Prabhupada's translation of this is so wonderful. Such a person who tastes this, would you like to taste this? So you should pray to be able to taste just a drop so you can serve in the way that you really desire to serve. You should beg Krishna to help you. Okay? You have to do that. You have to beg Krishna to help you. And such a person, vismarita, forgotten, drista, material sight, shruta, material sound, vishaya sukha, vishaya charya, giving up vishaya sukha, the desire for material pleasures, lesha abhas, the dim reflection, a little portion doesn't want to taste this even a little bit. What a relief that would be in my mind if there was no, even a little bit of a tinge of a small amount of desire to enjoy anything of this world. What happiness it would be. And this is the platform on which one can really taste Krishna's glories, because there would be no envy in the heart. And then hearing about Krishna, because when the glories are heard from a pure source in a pure heart, then Krishna is actually experienced. One can experience Krishna in Krishna Katha, Abhina, in the holy names. Abhina, Abhina Tvam Namanamano. So therefore, I halfway mentioned it before that Maharaj Parikshit said when he was hearing in the beginning of the 10th canto, he said, I'm not eating, I'm not drinking, and when we don't drink and we don't eat, it's so difficult, but I'm not feeling the slightest bit of difficulty because I'm tasting the Amrita. I'm actually eating, I'm actually drinking the Amrita through my ears of this Krishna Katha that you're giving me. Now speak more, speak more, speak more. I want more of this. Now please tell me about Krishna and his pastimes in Vrindavan, in Mathura, in Dwarka, but especially in Vrindavan, of course. Okay, thank you very much. Such kind-hearted devotees. They sat through my class. Are there any questions or comments? We have another 5 minutes. Yes, Paul.
Prabhuji, my question is, like, constantly we are listening that we should listen Krishna Katha, but two things are there. First, like, still we are not getting so much test, like as you pure devotees are having that test. And another thing, personally I have tendency to do prajalpa. So how to overcome both of this by listening, or how to overcome this bad habit?
Yes. That's why Maharaj Parikshit, it is called Nivritta Tarsha, that this Krishna Katha is for those who are already on this platform. It gives them ecstasy. And for those who are not on that platform, it is Bhava Oshud. It is medicine to get us to that platform. But the medicine must be taken not once. It's like if you take medicine one time, but I'm not cured. What's wrong? But you have to take the medicine again and again and again. Abhiramat. And then even for an ordinary person, they will feel pleasure in hearing about Krishna. But let me just point to one part of this verse in Prabhupada's translation that really struck me. And herein is the great difficulty of spiritual life. And this is the cure of the great difficulty. He says, free from all desires, such devotees who have tasted and given up material desires are the real friends of all living entities. Offering their minds unto you, there is the point. We offer our bodies, we do this service, we sweep the floor with our hands, we speak with our mouths, we clean, we do this, we walk here and there in service, but do we really offer our minds? Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that the mind is like the perverted reflection of the spiritual world. In the spiritual world, who is the center? And in my mind, who is the center? Me. Not you. You pointed, no, you're wrong. It's not you. You have it all wrong. And all the struggles in this world are to convince everyone else that they have the wrong person in the center. It should be me. But if we can offer our minds to Krishna, then we've really done something. When we do the service, instead of it being service, it becomes seva. When the mind is offered, actually, please let me do this for your pleasure. And when the mind is full of thoughts of Krishna, and that is what bhakti is. Acting to please Krishna. What will please Krishna? Bhakti only. Patram pushpam palampara, or even if it's a leaf or flower, some water, if it's given with bhakti. So please do something for Krishna. That's the offering of the mind. And then that's the issue. We hold back our mind, which means we're holding back everything. So we have to take the medicine that fills the mind with attraction to Krishna. That's the holy name, the Bhagavatam, seva. The whole process is the cure. Okay, last question.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for such a wonderful detailed class. If you kindly give me permission, since you asked about yesterday's class, I had this very two almost controversial arguments in my limited understanding. Yesterday's verse, the last two sentences of yesterday's verse. Purport. Yesterday's purport. Yeah. Last two sentences of the purport.
According to various stages of intelligence, one realizes the presence of the Supreme in everything through the manifestations of his energies. The entire world is permeated by the three gunas, and one can understand his presence according to one's modes of material nature.
So, the sentence prior to the second last sentence, talking about the Supreme, and the last sentence talking about how one can understand him remaining in the three modes of material nature.
According to one's own modes of material nature.
So, but Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita that Traigunya Vishya Veda Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna, one has to come above the three modes of material nature to get anywhere around spiritual. So here it is being said that one can understand the Supreme according to his mode. Is it so? The last sentence.
The entire world is permeated. The modes of material nature are everywhere. The entire world is permeated by this. And one can understand his presence according to one's modes of material nature. Obviously, according to the modes of material nature that affect us, we're not going to see Krishna playing his flute if we're talking about the modes of material nature. So it's obviously referring to different aspects of Krishna's presence. Without really looking into it, going deeply, it would be hard for me to answer it properly, your question. But what was the controversy?
Thing is that this entirely, that one remaining in three gunas, trying to understand and almost successfully understanding the Supreme just by remaining in the three modes. But that This
But
whole
you can have an understanding of the Supreme while being in the three modes. This is described in the Bhagavad Gita, also to Aham Brahmapasi, that everyone is the Supreme, that Pritak, that everything, this is all connected with the modes of material nature, but they're not fully transcendental realizations of the Supreme. And even this Annamaya platform, you see food is the Supreme, but you're understanding Him, but in a limited way due to the coverings over the consciousness. That's all I could do or say right now. So as I understood your question, how is it possible to understand anything of the Supreme while still being infected by the modes of material nature? But it is possible. There are so many religionists in this world who worship God. They say He's the controller. And they're certainly not all of pure consciousness. But it's possible to have some realization, but to understand deeply Krishna. And Krishna is so kind that if we offer Him something, even though we may not be pure, it's Bhavagrahi Janardana. He takes the best of that offering, even Putana. I'm sorry, I won't be able to do better than that at this point. Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanand.